You're listening to an episode recorded during the time Innovation Fuel was part of University Canada West. We are proud and grateful for the work we've done together, and we want to thank the university for being in our podcast. We are now excited to continue the journey of Innovation Fuel into its next chapter. Thanks for listening.
Hello everyone, I'm Gelare Farhadian.
And I am Dave Kiran. We are educators, entrepreneurs, and the host of this podcast, Innovation Fuel.
Innovation Fuel is a weekly business podcast brought to you by University Canada West. Each episode explores diverse business models, leadership issues, and ways entrepreneurs are innovating and adapting to our current environment.
Are you interested in more stories? Check out our episode at www.ucanwest.ca/Innovation Fuel. Hey, Galari, I'm very excited about today. We're talking about the environment. We're talking about solar energy.
You know, it's better to talk about my BC Hydro bill, you know? How can I reduce that BC Hydro bills? It's very good because in the winter, it's a long winter. How can I reduce that one? And by reducing that one, but also I can help environment. What is the best solutions? I think it's the solar panel. What do you think?
Let's find out. Without further ado, let's ignite today's episode of Innovation Fuel. So our guest today is Myke Clark. He is the CEO at Solar Alliance, and he is going to share with us a variety of things about, I hope, solar elements. So welcome, Myke. Thank you for joining us on Innovation Fuel.
Well, it is great to join you guys. And yes, I can absolutely talk about BC Hydro and your electric bill. Love to talk about that all day long.
Yeah, please. You know that my husband really wants to buy a house, but I really don't want to go to the house. The one reason I have it, I cannot pay the bills. I mean, I think that it's going to be insane to pay the BC Hydro and make the house warm.
It is absolutely. So it's interesting, you know, with BC Hydro, people do complain about the electricity costs in BC a lot. But to be honest, BC has relatively low electricity rates. If you look across North America in places like California, Ontario, the northeast of the U.S., they pay 3-4 times as much as BC does. So it's not as bad of a situation in BC from electricity cost perspective as you might think, even though it does cost a lot of money, which means that solar is absolutely an option for people in the Lower Mainland and in BC and across Canada. It just depends on what you're looking for and what you're looking to get out of it.
Yeah, so Myke, you're starting to talk about solar energy, and I really like, and I want our audience to really connect with this, to know who you are. How did you end up in solar energy, of all places?
Yeah, well, it was a long journey, that's for sure. So my original training, or I went to university for the first time around to become a journalist. So I worked in radio and TV news for about a decade or so in Vancouver. And left that to go and work for what was then a wind energy developer. So a company that developed large-scale wind projects up in Northeast BC in and around Fort St. John. And I did what a lot of journalists did at the time, was sort of a natural transition, did public relations for them, stakeholder engagement, that type of thing, you know, topics that I had an awareness of what I already sort of knew how to do, and transitioned into the business world that way. Long story short, the same company has transitioned a couple different times and now is in solar. I worked through a few different iterations. I was the business development VP, and then chief marketing officer, then chief operating officer, and now the CEO. And stuffed in between there was an executive MBA course as well.
Perfect, Myke. What I've heard is that in Alberta, in Chipewyan, the whole indigenous people are using the solar panels. So it's already started a lot of part of the Canada to using the solar panel and say goodbye to gas generator. That's why they say. Yeah.
Yeah, so, absolutely. I mean, it's a great solution. People often, when they think about solar, they think maybe on their home and lowering their electricity bill. But you have to understand, especially in a place like Canada, there are many communities that don't have grid connected power. So they don't have transmission lines that run into their communities. And so they rely on diesel generators oftentimes, which is one, very expensive, but also is highly polluting. And so with solar and other things like wind as well, you can generate the electricity that these smaller communities need. You probably never entirely lose the diesel generator because you want it for backup, at least right now, but you can generate a significant amount of your power through solar. You can then have battery storage. So what it does is it allows you to bring power to communities that otherwise wouldn't have it or would rely on dirty, expensive diesel generation. So it's one of those things that it's not just for people in the Lower Mainland. It's not just for big businesses. It's absolutely for smaller communities as well. And you do see a lot of First Nations communities taking advantage of it because governments, in some circumstances, are more likely to support that for rural communities, which is great.
Yeah, it is fantastic. So, can I know what is your clients, or how many different clients you have? What type of clients you're approaching? Yeah.
Yeah, so we sell solar. Well, I guess as our business, just an overview of our business, we sell, design, engineer, and then install solar systems for a variety of different customer groups. Homeowners, so residential homeowners, put it on their rooftop, reduce their electricity bill. Small business owners, again, probably putting like a small, either restaurants or something like that, where again, small system put on the roof, and then larger systems that are sold. The power is then sold to a utility or a larger group that requires a significant amount of power. So then those solar farms that you see pictures of, a large field with thousands of solar panels on them. So those are sort of our distinct customer groups. Right now, I would say probably half of our business is to homeowners, and the other half is through commercial and that large utility.
So, Myke, how would you define your value proposition or your target customer? Is it the residential, or is it the commercial side, or is it still the combination of both? Do you focus in one area over the other?
We're definitely transitioning away from the residential, and that's really just because of where our expertise is. And our value proposition and our competitive edge is our people, without a doubt, and our ability to solve problems and come up with a solution. So if you think about it, if a homeowner comes to you, it's pretty straightforward. They have X number of square feet on their roof. They need an X number of kilowatt hours of power. And you design a system, and it's very straightforward, or I should say it's relatively straightforward. So there are big companies out there that do that, and they can probably do it cheaper than a company like ours. We can still do it and make a bit of money, but are we ever going to take over the world doing it? No, probably not. And so for us, we look at the types of situations where there are businesses, utilities that are looking for a custom solution that have some problem that they want to address in terms of things like peak shaving or demand shaving, which is like in some jurisdictions you pay more at certain times of the day, or you pay more if you go over a certain cap of your electricity usage. And so what that does is it allows us to come in there and say, look, we can provide this custom solution for you. It's going to reduce your electricity bill X, and we can design it and engineer it and install it for you. Very straightforward. There's a lot, obviously, that goes on behind the scenes. But that's something that not everybody can do, and I think that's where we definitely see ourselves growing in the future, just because there's more value for the customer, and then therefore more value to us and to our shareholders too.
So and to get there, it sounds like you might have pivoted a lot of different times in order to find that differentiator piece where you're finding your sort of niche, I guess, in the market.
Absolutely. Initially, as I sort of described around the wind energy that we were involved with. We developed these projects that were big. And so they probably had about $800 million of capital cost to build them out. Now, at the time, we were a tiny company. It's just like, well, there's no way we're going to be able to come up with $800 million, right? So you have to sort of, we bid those in and we won those projects through an RFP. But we sold them before it got to operation, or before we could actually build them, just because that wasn't the space that we could sort of live in. And so the question was, for our size company, what made sense? And so what made sense is to go after an energy source like solar, where you can sell one system that costs $15,000, $20,000. You can sell, 20 of those. You can then sell 30 of them, but you can scale the business. And it makes much more sense from a scalability point of view, as opposed to going after something where, one day you don't require any funds or capital, and the next day you require $800 million, right? So it's about understanding and going after a business segment that matches what your company can do and what we can do, and that's what we've done. And then we pivoted a bit along the way towards larger commercial sized projects, because we can now, and because that makes more sense for us in terms of the skill set that we bring to bear. And then my personal pivots, I pivot all the time.
I understand what is your product actually, and you are trying to, it's not just selling a product, you're implemented, you're giving the solution as well, you're trying to design that one. But I think that it's many competitors out there, right, in your area. So how you're differentiate yourself with them?
Yeah, there are definitely. And if you look at the different sort of segments, there are different competitors. So on the residential side, there are large national companies that have marketing budgets, well in excess of 100 times of our market cap, right? And so there are big companies out there that are attacking that residential sector. On the commercial side of the business and the utility side of the business, there are companies and there are competitors out there, absolutely. But we definitely have to differentiate ourselves in terms of how we can deliver the product that they're looking for at a competitive price. And on the commercial side of the business, we can do that. And so that's really why we're focused on that. On the marketing side of the business, we try to do things that differentiate ourselves. William Shatner is our spokesperson. As a Canadian, he loves the Canadian upstart company story, and has been a big supporter of ours. And so we use him for some marketing. And so really you do whatever you can to differentiate yourself in that sort of marketplace. I would say, though, on the solar side or the solar industry, there's maybe 5% market penetration. I mean, solar, there's a lot of talk about solar, but solar is nowhere nationally and in the US, other than maybe in California, where you see a lot more solar installed. But it is the very infancy of this market, and it is just starting to now take hold and really boom. So, for us, it's a great place to be, obviously.
One more questions about that one. So, how do you market yourself? Because as I could say that you have residential, you have single people just come to you and ask for it, and commercial, right? And what about developers? Have you ever connect with them?
Yes, yes, for sure. And so, we do a few different things on the marketing side of the business. On residential, it is much more straightforward lead generation. So digital lead generation, a little bit of digital ads, Google ads, things like that. Although it's very easy for that budget to run away from you at times. And so we do some of that. We do some traditional advertising as well. On the commercial side of the business, it is primarily through channel partners and through referrals. And so our biggest customers and our best customers are all referrals and groups that we've been working with for a couple of years, who then put us in touch with other people. We put out news as a publicly traded company. We put out press releases that talk about the big projects we're doing. Other people see that. And so the commercial side of the business, it's a unique, acquiring customs is a unique prospect on the commercial side. A lot of it is referral. Lead generation is not quite the same. It's not as straightforward as it is on the residential side of the business. But at the end of the day, it often just comes down to your reputation and what you've done in the market already, and the projects that you've already built and what people think of them.
So your primary operations in your business is a lot of relationship building then?
It is, absolutely. Without that, you won't go anywhere in this business. I mean, while we're selling solar, it's very comparable to a lot of home improvement companies on the residential side. So if you're looking for a company to install a hot water heater, what do you look for? You look for Yelp reviews. You probably call up your neighbor and say, what did you use? Your community organization, whatever it is, right? The email chain that goes around the community, you say, hey, who do you guys use? And that drives a lot of sales, right? And so, the reputation is very important for sure. For me as the CEO, I should be very outward focused. Talking to investors, building those relationships. That's a big part of the responsibility of the job. At times you get sort of bogged down on the internal workings, because you feel like, oh, I can help do this, I can help do that. But really, you need to make sure and let your team everyone needs to do what they are supposed to do and do it well. And then really for me, it's like focusing on the external, talking to investors, trying to establish those relationships with the bigger players in the market.
So, and then Myke, with future developments here, because you said that solar power seems to be in infancy, and there's still some opportunities for like further growth. And I noticed that you guys are taking on, it looks like some R&D projects or things that you're getting patents on to support future growth. Like, so where do you go with that journey as you try to sort of prepare for what the future, like where do we see the future of solar power going, and how does Solar Alliance align with that?
Yeah, so it's a great question. Innovation is one of those things that people talk a lot about, and it's very hard to implement, right? It's hard to drive innovation, especially when you're always, for us, we're always building. There's always a project in front of us that we want to get to. There's always things that can make us money right now, and so the question is, how much time do you spend on things that will be a year away, 2 years away? And for us, what we decided to focus on from an innovation or a product innovation point of view is something called Power Shed, and it's a relatively simple thing, as many good ideas are. But the University of Tennessee, they came to us and they were looking for a solution for their robotic mowers. So there are these lawn mowers out there that run on batteries. They're robotic. You just send them out in the field and they go automatically. They're tracked by GPS. And so they're like the Roomba, the vacuum thing that buzzes around your apartment or whatever and just does it automatically. Well, there are these products out there, and they're made by all the big mower manufacturers. They wanted a solution that was clean in terms of charging. And so we came up with basically what is a shed with solar panels on the roof of it with a battery and a charging portal for these machines. And so we work with the University of Tennessee to come up with a patent application. We submitted that, and now we built a few prototypes, and we're testing them. And the goal really is to send this out into the market in the next few months. And there's been a lot of great feedback. But essentially, what it does is it allows you to place these robotic mowers anywhere. They don't have to be plugged into the wall. They don't have to be plugged into the grid. And it's a pretty interesting solution for something that we weren't really thinking about at all. We were really just thinking about solar and homes and businesses, and they came to us with this idea, and we said, yeah, let's go and do it. Because on the solar side of the business itself, panels, the technology innovation, that's all happening by multi-billion-dollar companies, right? And so there's no place for us in that, and nor do we want it, that kind of technology risk. So for this, we can sort of do it off the side of our desk, right? We take 5-10% of our time and push it forward. And at some point, we'll go out and bring in capital or funds specifically for this opportunity. Maybe spin it out. Maybe a joint venture with one of the mower manufacturers. But it's a neat idea, and it gets the team charged up, and it keeps them looking for other ideas out there, other solutions. Because whether it's Power Shed or a solar system that could be complicated, that's kind of what we thrive on, right? Is like looking for those types of solutions.
And with the other element that I also noticed that was something that you guys explored too is into the whole world of vehicles and battery operating installation into homes. It kind of seems like you're kind of a jack of all these different elements that you're trying to capture that value. So what's with the evolution of this, it seems like the gas combustion engine is dying pretty quickly here.
Can't die soon enough. I mean, I'm biased, but it's interesting. Electric vehicles, EV chargers, absolutely are a big part of our business, because if you look at the demographics of people that put solar on their home, they are the people that have electric vehicles as well. And so for us, we're electricians. I mean, that's a lot of what solar is. Installing an electric vehicle charger takes a couple of hours. So it's a no-brainer product offering for us. We get to work with brands like Tesla. We get to work with all the major vehicle manufacturers and their charging stations. And so there's good crossover in terms of the product. If you see now, and I don't want to take credit for it. Every solar company out there does this right now. They all sell EV chargers without a doubt. And most of them sell batteries as well. So as do we. Because if you look at the home nowadays, people are looking to get off grid. They want to power their own home. They want to keep that power for when they, when we talk about power prices in BC and elsewhere, a lot of places they have time of use power prices where at 6 o'clock at night, they charge you, twice as much because that's when everyone's using electricity, right? And so it's a kind of a demand charge. And so if you have a battery, what you can do is you can charge that battery during the day, discharge it at 6 to 7 o'clock at night, and you don't get hit with all of those time of use charges. So there's a real good economic case for that. And so for the most part, when we go and sell a system to a homeowner, we try to sell a solar system, a electric vehicle charger, and a battery. And that's the standard offer. If they don't want one of them, absolutely, we'll just put solar on there, but that's kind of the standard offer.
And soon to be a shed, I think, eh?
and the power shed for the backyard. That's mostly for, we have it right now. It's the latest test unit is deployed on a driving range. So those are the size of like fields that these things would be on, right? So big, either golf courses, driving ranges, university campuses, that kind of thing. Yeah.
I can see in your website you have a solar news. Why you added that onto your website?
On the news, you mean?
Yes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we like to keep track of what's going on in the industry and put out information. Part of it around our news is that as a publicly traded company, we disclose, material information about what we're doing. So if we sign a big contract, we have to tell all the investors, all the shareholders. If we God forbid, had some bad news, we would have to put that up there as well. But basically, it's about disclosing everything that the company is doing, which is, it's interesting from being a public company is there are benefits and challenges to it, depending on what the markets are doing. But generally with customers, they like it because they can look at us, they can see our financial statements, they can see what we've done. It's all very above board. We don't and can't hide anything. So people can see who the team is and what we've done in the past, how long we've been around for. So there's a degree of transparency that it is attractive to a lot of customers.
So how is the government is helping you? Is there any incentive for you, or you can use it in Canada? Because I can see that there are going to be big shift to the green energy. Is it any help from government?
Not really, no. And there are some incentives that are available for specific projects in specific communities. There is nothing really that is across the board, industry wide that would drive an industry. You see a lot of the growth in Canada right now in Alberta, and that's really just economics. They have a deregulated energy system where if you can build it and sell the power, you're great. In BC, there's really only one purchaser of the power for the most part, and that's BC Hydro. You can kind of do things around that, but it's very difficult and very challenging. So you don't see big projects in BC anymore unless they're contracted to BC Hydro. In the States, there are not that many incentives either, like not cash incentives. There are tax credits. So, there's a federal tax credit in the States that has driven a lot of the growth over the last 10 years. Basically, that if you are to spend $10,000 on a system, you would get about a 30% tax credit. So $3,000 would come off your tax bill the next year. So it's not a direct outlay of cash from the government, but it does improve a customer's tax situation or tax bill. So something like that in Canada would be very helpful. But, so far, it doesn't look like there's any move by government to move in that direction. Coming out of COVID, hard to say. I mean, there's going to be a lot of infrastructure funding without a doubt. So it'll be interesting to see. But I would say this, though, solar is past the point of needing subsidies. It makes sense. It's economic without subsidies. Without tax credits in the States, it's cheaper than plugging into your utility in a lot of different states. Some states that still have very, very cheap power that run essentially old coal plants. then it's, I mean, in those situations, maybe not. But for the most part, it stands on its own 2 feet. So, those subsidies are not required anymore. The subsidies that took place 5-10 years ago are what drove the industry and allowed the technology advances to take place, so that now it's cheap. It's cheaper than anything. I mean, you can install solar cheaper than you can build a gas-fired plant, cheaper than a coal plant. Absolutely. I mean, it's cheaper than everything.
That is great. I can see that a lot of companies they're using network marketing to sell their solar panel. Is there any approach that you're taking, or?
Yeah, I mean, for us right now, it's we not really. I mean, we use channel partners for our commercial projects. So what that is essentially is people that are already in either the home improvement business, the home builder business, people that are already in the homes and selling things to people. People that are already touching our customers. Essentially, we want to partner with them and add our product onto theirs. So what it is for instance, a home builder, someone who's building a community of 100 homes, we contract with them and say, look, offer this to all of your homeowners. So people that are coming in and buying a new home, such as you can go and add solar to it. You just tick a box, and it's like buying granite countertops, right? I mean, that's the time to do it, is when you're building a new home, because you roll it into your mortgage and you don't see it. If you're in Vancouver or anywhere really nowadays, you're spending $500,000 or $1 million on building a home. $20,000 solar system doesn't move the needle in terms of your mortgage payments, right? And it benefits you over the life of the home in terms of lower electricity costs. So, those are the kind of partners that we like to work with, that can allow us, again, to scale without having to hire hundreds and hundreds of people. Which is in the past, to be honest, how we got into trouble, several years ago, is bringing on too many people too quickly, right? And then you have this sort of fixed cost overhead that if you have a bad sales month, you're kind of hooped.
So Myke, what's the future of solar energy and Solar Alliance? Where do you see this going? Where do you see your organization going as you move forward?
Yeah, I mean, our goal is to be a national provider of solar solutions. And when I say national, I say in the US, but in Canada as well. Our growth in Canada, we've installed a few things in Canada, but not as much as we would have liked. But I see that happening more and more in 2021, without a doubt. The industry and the sort of environment has changed. People are now looking at solar like they've never looked at it before, everywhere. And so for us, it's about expanding responsibly into our surrounding states, into Canada, and building out a team of channel partners that can help us sell our product again, and keep our overhead costs quite low, so that we can be profitable. You look at the larger solar companies that are doing what we're doing. That the trick is to get to that scale where you are, couple $100 million company, $1 billion company, and still be profitable. Because a lot of them get to that sort of market cap size, but they're losing money, and they raise money to basically, to cover some gaps. And so to do it profitably is the challenge. And that's really how we're trying to grow right now, to grow profitably, but clearly grow as we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to see that. Do you have any other services to offer after, like a maintenance?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So we do, right now it doesn't form a big part of our business, but whenever we sell a system, especially to larger commercial clients, we offer operations and maintenance contracts. And so we go and service the systems. And you know what, I should add as well, another piece of our business long term is owning and operating these assets. And so right now we build them and sell them. But if we had the ability to balance sheet own them ourselves, we would, and we'd sell that power on an ongoing basis for 20 years, and then have recurring revenue. And so we wouldn't be as beholden to sort of the cycles of the sales cycles, right? And so we sell a lot one month, we don't sell a lot the next month. Revenues go up, revenues go down. Whereas if we own these assets, we could be selling power and getting that recurring revenue on a steady basis. And so that takes capital. And so we still have some work to do on the financial side of the business to get there. But long term, we absolutely see that as a point of growth as well.
Fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very smart, my friend. Very smart. Hey, so Myke, we like to give our last word to our guests. Is there a question that Galari and I have not asked you, or a bit of information, the Holy Grail, we'll call it, that you think you could pass on to our audience, our students, and anybody that's listening here, that some words of advice or anything you can think of?
Yeah, absolutely. And when I agreed to do this, I was kind of thinking about that. It was like, are there any words of wisdom? And it seems a bit pompous to say it like that. But the piece of advice I would offer is never give up. Right. I mean, even in the last 2 years since I've taken over as CEO, we've seen some ups and downs. The public never sees them, right? They just sort of see growing revenues. They don't see the sleepless nights around making payroll, and things like that. And, but having said that, though, if you have a plan and you put it in place and you keep pursuing it, you may fail. Like, let's not kid ourselves. Like, not every business is successful, but at least that you did everything you could. And hopefully you'll be successful. And so far for us, things have sort of, we've come out the other side of the tunnel and things are looking good, right? And so it kind of makes it all worthwhile. But there are many opportunities to quit along the way, and just don't take them.
Thank you, Myke Clark, for joining us today and sharing your experience. For all the business owners out there, we have a fleet of enthusiastic and knowledgeable students here at UCW that can help you with your business through our capstone project and internship program. And if you think that you have a story that you can share with us, with the student and listeners, please reach out to us at www.ukenwest.ca/Innovation Fuel.
Thank you, Myke, and thank you, Galari. This week's episode of Innovation Fuel is now concluded. Join us next week as we explore another innovative entrepreneur, business owner, or community leader. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you can reach us, so you'll never miss one of our exciting episodes. Thank you again for listening. Looking forward to next week. See you next week. Bye-bye.